This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in to Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network. He's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Stormy Buonantony. Lots to get to over the course of the next 2 hours. We're coming to you live from downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. Producer Brian Ortega and company at the controls behind the glass today. And we might as well jump right in because we do have a lot to discuss. Hit us with the rundown, shall we?
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
All right, we got a couple great guests on deck for the program in 30 minutes. VSiN.com Managing Editor Adam Burke is going to stop by, get into some college football and MLB. JVT, 5 of the 12 playoff spots in 2 of 6 divisions have been decided, but still 15 teams alive for those final 7 spots.
I'm surprised. I didn't realize Adam was coming in. I figured he got ruptured today at some point, but good to have him in studio. Very much looking forward to this last week of the Major League Baseball season and how everything's going to be decided. A lot of stuff still up in the air, including a win total for the Anaheim Angels, which I don't know will eventually get there, but still very excited to see how Adam thinks this is all going to play out. And his Guardians in the thick of everything with the potential to steal the division from the Detroit Tigers. Huge
series beginning today with the Tigers. Scooble is on the hill today, though, but Guardians just 1 game back. All of a sudden in the division, they have been surging. We will also have Ian Fitzsimmons from ESPN Radio join the program as well in hour 2. A few huge games this weekend in college football: Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia. Arizona, Iowa State, of course, as well. He will be on the field, though, in Happy Valley. So very curious to get his early thoughts on that one.
Don't worry. Don't sell yourself short. Yes, it's a very big game. I'm not a Brent Brennan guy, but I mean, the
I know
Big 12.
You've told me I need to tell Brent Brennan that in the meetings this weekend. I'll let him know.
Tell him I think he stinks. But I will say, look, we kind of have a front runner in the Big 12, right? Texas Tech seems like that's the team. Obviously, there's a void of power there for number 2. Who's it going to be? Can Iowa State make it back to a Big 12 championship game for consecutive years? That, I think, is a very big story, and maybe one of the better, if not top 10-ish quarterbacks in the country in Rocco Beck that you get to see up close and personal.
Yeah, Beck's not talked about nearly as much, I would think. He's not the flashiest quarterback, especially with how many names they do have in the Big 12, but he has been awesome in clutch time. So we'll discuss that a little bit later, but we also have front page news, back page news coming up in 15 minutes. Maybe not the biggest headlines, but could they be impactful? Mostly regarding the National Football League, but we do have some in college football. And we're going to get things started today with the ultimate front page news, because we have a quarterback update out there in New York. Giants are throwing darts, as we put on the headline here. See what I did there? No? Okay. For anyone who missed it, so yesterday, Giants head coach Brian Daboll was very non-committal when it came to the quarterback situation. He had an exchange with a reporter where he refused to really say anything other than we are evaluating everything. And then this morning, all of the insiders have come out saying that the decision has been made, and Jackson Dart will make his first career start in the NFL this coming Sunday against the Los Angeles Chargers. How excited are you? The microwave beeped.
Is he ready?
The microwave beeped.
Is this it?
The 0-3 timer went off. He's ready.
This is it? This is like we're alleging that he's ready. It just happens to coincide with the fact that Russell Wilson stinks.
So here's what I would say to this.
But really quick for our audience, I'm being sarcastic here because we had an argument a few weeks ago about, you have said, well, you can't start him until he's ready, which I have stated I think is stupid. When is it ready? Week 3, week 7, how do you even know? What's the point? So I guess you just happen to have a guy who's ready to go the same week that your dude was awful.
It's
in front of everybody.
Twofold. One, to follow up that Jackson Dart comment, I did also the very next day on Why Not Wednesday say, should we throw in a Jackson Dart Offensive Rookie of the Year at 22-1, which is now around plus 750, depending on the book that you look at. So we said, if I'm wrong and if this does ultimately happen quicker than we expect it to be, you should jump in on this number now. So look at how drastically that has moved. And then the second point to that is, if the Giants and Brian Daboll specifically didn't think that he was ready enough to go in there. I mean, they have Jameis Winston in the room, too. Mm-hmm. They could have gone another direction, but giving Jackson Dart the opportunity here, I think, is notable, and they probably didn't want him sitting behind Russell Wilson to learn any more goal-to-go situations because of how that went on Sunday night.
I mean, so here's the thing. First off, I think I talked about this Will Hill on his podcast. Maybe it was on this show. But the act of betting Jackson Dart to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, it was a smart move only in that I think we likened it to Paul Skeens when he won NL Rookie of the Year. Mm-hmm. I bet Paul Skeens before he got called up to win NL Rookie of the Year, knowing that just the second he is called up, those odds are going to change, whatever it is. Same thing here. Jackson Dart has done nothing, and yet just because he is now the starting quarterback, odds immediately are going to rise. To what extent? You can argue, is it apt, is it not, whatever. They were going to rise, and sure enough, as you mentioned, they have. So I think my question now is, look, we can speculate on what this is going to look like coming up this week. The Giants have, my brain is a mush right now, who they have
Chargers.
this week. Chargers, thank you very much. A challenging opponent to face. After that, it is the Saints, if I remember correctly.
Well, and that's the week that everyone was initially targeting,
Sure.
saying, hey, if you're going to come in, ease them in against the Saints. But they figured, hey, sooner rather than later, let's just get him out there.
And you're getting him at home, right? No travel, anything like that. The team itself is not going to feel any of the effects of like playing on a Monday night on a short week, all those sort of things. So it does it works as well as you can. Getting him, I think it's overblown, but getting an opponent traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast, obviously, again, something that kind of works in your favor if you believe that that's the case. West Coast team on an early kick. So all these things maybe are going to work in the Giants' favor. Now the question becomes, how good is he? But I want to ask you, all right, Rookie of the Year, after this last week, one of the other Rookie of the Year angles that has been thrown out there for the National Football League was his teammate, Cam Skattebo, right? No?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Bo? Boo? Boo.
It's
okay.
spelled Bo, but pronounced Boo.
Got it.
Why?
Okay.
God knows.
Okay.
But
So Cam
yes.
Skattebo, who led the team, who was just an offensive weapon for
Monster.
the Giants this last week. Who would you rather have an offensive Rookie of the Year ticket on at this point right now? Jackson Dart or Cam Skattebo?
That's a great question. So what I struggle with, and I'd be curious your opinion on too, is these types of awards, they just always tend to favor quarterbacks.
Correct.
So especially considering where he's stepping in this early in the season, he's going to have such a large sample size to try to do something. And if they do end up winning games and getting out of even just some semblance of the hole and he performs well, I feel like he would get the look. But Skattebo is awesome. And he does have the flair to where, like, he's not just a running back that people aren't going to know his name, right?
Correct.
Everybody is going to be paying attention
That was
to him.
Mitch's point today. We recorded our podcast, by the way, Pots of the Future. Check it out wherever you get your podcast. That was his point. Not only, like, is it the New York thing, right? The, hey, we play for New
In a
York.
big market.
But obviously that Skattebo is a personality that would be attractive to shows, to cover, things like that.
Sure, but I think Dart would kind of have that too. He's got a little bit of that, like, savvy, swag, whatever you want to call it. I mean, Skattebo's still available at 20-1
Yes,
if you do want to
20-1.
go that direction. So there's a potential with which if you got Jackson Dart last week and you want to grab Cam Skattebo now, you can still have a profitable ticket if the Giants end up doing well and these two players are studs. Because, I mean, look at who's at the top of the board. So Emeka Egbuka is the leader in the clubhouse, and I think rightfully so for how he's performed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to this point. Tyler Warren of the Colts, your second shot. T-Mac from the Panthers, plus 750. Omari and Hampton, that same price with the Chargers. Before you see Dart, Genty's stock has gone way down, but he's still such a short shot. Cam Ward, are we believing that the Titans are going to do anything, even if this is a quarterback favorable type of award? I'm not so sure. So I think Jackson Dart would be the leader in the clubhouse from the quarterback perspective.
Yeah, that is, I mean, right now,
Despite,
because
again, not playing it down.
Well, he hasn't played it down, so he hasn't ruined his profile yet.
Sure.
So that's, I think, to your point, being the leader in the clubhouse for quarterbacks when, yeah, I mean, they're all like in 10th place. It hasn't really gone very well. And I think this market's worth bringing up not only because of this news, but just evaluating it as a whole. My offer for this market overall was another running back at 20-1. Quinshon Judkins had a very strong game against Green Bay. He is the rookie leading rusher, so among rookies, has a couple of touchdowns as well, averaging over 5 yards a carry. And my argument, too, is, look, Stefanski's offense has put together some pretty strong running back seasons, as we have seen in the past. It's an offense that is really built around the ground game, and I don't think that it's going to be affected by this potential rotation of quarterbacks we could see. By the way, Skattebo could also be in that mix. If Jackson Dart stinks and you're going to see a Jameis Winston down the road or all three of them, they're kind of in similar situations. But I'd say overall, it's hard to dive in on Dart now, knowing that we've talked about this. You probably should have just bet him when you did, and then just sit back and wait for him to get called up, get the odds cut in half, and then see what happens.
This is a fun conversation because now I'm wondering if maybe I should just add Skattebo too, because it's still, I mean, obviously this number has been significantly cut down for a guy who was a fourth whatever round pick to the Giants, but 20-1 I think is still worthwhile as somebody if you're building out a portfolio in this market. I like the Judkins one, and I would also throw you a Travion Henderson if the Patriots keep on, like, Are they going to keep giving the ball to Ramondre Stevenson if he keeps choking it up consistently with all of the fumbles? TreVeyon Henderson has potential to be awesome. Let's just keep rolling with the Ohio State backs.
Yeah, and I think too, I know that Dart's the news, but I think this is kind of what you're supposed to do after news like this. All right, there's an adjustment. Where else do you look? Because the other part of this move is not the book saying this is what we think his true odds are of winning this award. This is, hey, we're about to get piled on with Jackson Dart money. Let's shorten this up and then let's adjust everywhere else. So so you mentioned wow, who did you just mention?
TreVeyon Henderson.
Thank you, TreVeyon Henderson. There you go.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that short-circuited this week.
Yes, we're all human. That's very breaking news.
Listen, it just happens to me a lot more often, so I need this.
The other obvious long shot here is a dude who everybody was very excited about in the preseason. We were all rodding up over Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt.
Yeah.
And had a relatively strong game, only 23 snaps against Las Vegas, but one would assume, given the status of this backfield, that you're going to see a larger workload as we move along here for Krosky-Merritt. So I know a lot of people probably want to pile on Dart here, but with the adjustment, I think the angle now is look everywhere else but Jackson Dart.
I would 100% agree with you now. And honestly, I think this is probably moved a little too aggressively for a guy that we have not seen yet.
Dude, as I always say, I mean, we said this.
Do we think this Giants offensive line is fixed?
Right. Well, I'll go back, and I didn't think this was the case, but we said it, which was, what if Arch Manning stinks? There's a reality in which that happens. This is the same thing here. What if Jackson Dart stinks? What if he comes out there and he's abysmal for 2 straight weeks? That could happen, and then all of a sudden now, if that is the path we're going down, you're talking about a market that's been shaken up for a dude that might not be particularly good.
One thing I do feel confident in is that he will be better than Russell Wilson in the red zone, who is the 32nd ranked quarterback in the red zone this season with a 0.8 QBR on a scale of 0 to 100, ladies and gentlemen, 0.8. One last thing to tag this, though. Malik Neighbors in the locker room post-game after the game on Sunday saying, listen, it's not just the quarterback. It wasn't Daniel Jones a year ago. It's not all Russell Wilson today. So some clear frustration with Mike Kafka and the decision-making and the play calling as well. There's a lot more layers to this than just a quarterback change. That was the front page news. We got front page news or back page news coming up after this with more hot topics in the National Football League.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Let's see which stories make the lines move and which stories deserve to be tossed out in front page news or back page news.
Ooh, the debut of the new Open.
That was a good picture of me. I don't know what I was doing, but I was doing something. It looked like I was serious.
Good. Time for front page news, back page news. A handful of items in college football in the NFL.
Although I will protest that I do not like the fact that we have designed these images over a New York missive.
Fortunately, we will make up for it tomorrow with West Coast bias.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, appreciate
of course. We have to even it all out at one point. Let's jump right in, though, with one of the big headlines of the morning. Oklahoma State cuts mullet. ESPN's Pete Thamel reporting longtime Oklahoma State head coach Mike Gundy has been fired. The move comes, by the way, just one day after Gundy told reporters he 100% intended on remaining at Oklahoma State beyond the 2025 season. Oklahoma State has dropped 11 of their last 12 games dating back to last season. They were 3-9 last year, 0-9 in conference play, and off to an ugly start this year. Front page news or back page news, Gundy's out.
I mean, in theory, it is front page news just because it's a very big story. He's been there for an eternity.
21 years.
Yeah, and he's done a relatively good job, but clearly, if you get stuck in a spot for too long, the message is going to become stale. You're going to lose whatever. There is something to be said of having some fear that you might lose your job. And then when you become comfortable in a role and you know that you're going to be fine for the most part, well, then you tend to maybe not stay up that extra hour or do that extra 20 minutes of preparation or whatever it was where at the beginning of your career you were willing to do that extra little bit of practice time management where we're going to develop this or we're going to do this. And I think you kind of saw that. You think you see it all the time with all these coaches. You get pretty long in the tooth. And I think you see that in any career where guys or gals are stuck in one spot for a really long time. I'm just trying to explain why I get fired all the time. Either way, though, it's news there. Do you upgrade Oklahoma State? No. Do you do anything with them from a future standpoint? Not really. Maybe this is, I think an old handicapper would come to you and say, this is the game where they're going to win one for the Gipper and come in and be really focused, fallen star theory. Maybe. But maybe the power rating's just so low on this team. That's why their coach got fired, and then the bumper's just a little too high.
And I'm not necessarily sure how connected this roster is to Mike Gundy being their head coach when he brought in 60 new bodies this offseason as well. Like, this isn't a team that's been behind him for years, right? It's a different level of thinking. And this line was already on the move against Oklahoma State before this news came through. Opened a 19.5-point home dog to Baylor, out to 21.5 some spots.
Well, I think it's a good point, too, in today's day and age. I mean, there are teams that you can try to put together. Florida State last year is a really good example of that. That was a mercenary group. That was a bunch of dudes that they were like, come on, let's come on over to Florida State and let's get all these guys that we think are talented. We'll put them on a field together and let's see if it works. It didn't. It's failed spectacularly. Sometimes it works at the lower levels. UNLV is a good example for this year. That is a mercenary group that so far is undefeated and has done it, but it's not really working right now for Oklahoma State. So we'll see if maybe this inspires a group of dudes that 6 months ago were not on the team, but I would highly doubt that's the case.
I mean, Texas Tech, another group where it is working, but a lot of places
they're also getting paid.
Yeah. Valid point.
Yes.
But to put a note on this one, he's a man. He's fortunate for college football buyouts because he still owed $15 million from Oklahoma State with 3.5 years left on his contract.
Do you know what Dabo Swinney's buyout is?
What?
It's like north of $60 million.
Wow.
So he's going to be there for a while.
Okay, let's shift to the NFL. Headline, Baker down a top target. We talked about the Mike Evans injury yesterday. Got an update on that. Evans now expected to miss 3 to 4 weeks with that strained left hamstring suffered in the fourth quarter of Tampa's win over the Jets. What was initially believed to be a low-grade sprain upgraded to a moderate sprain after testing. Mayfield and company have been able to weather the storm without Mike Evans in the past, and it does appear like Chris Godwin at least has a strong chance to return this week. Front page news or back page news, Eagles on deck. Bucks a 3-point home dog.
I think it depends on that last point you made. If you're telling me right now that Chris Godwin is playing, then I think it's a little more back page news. You can overcome it. If it's just Emeka Egbuka, obviously they're not going to play with one receiver, but you know what I'm saying is if it's just Egbuka out there, then I think that's a lot more impactful. Now, Godwin making his way back, we can have the whole rest versus rust theory and, hey, he hasn't played for a while, how impactful will he be, all that nonsense. But at the end of the day, having a receiver the caliber of Chris Godwin out there to at least supplement some of the loss that is brought on by Mike Evans' injury, that's just a better position to be in. So I would say, in general, it's going to be front page news. And it's also front page news because, again, there's a laundry list of injuries now piling up for this Buccaneers team. Offensive line, skill position, defense. Can they keep this up? And my initial guess would say, no, I don't think they can. So we'll see if the Eagles can get it done against this really beat-up team because this team is getting decimated with injuries.
If you get Godwin back, and, I mean, Tristan Wirfs, I haven't seen an update this week, but if he could work his way back, too, that would at least help the offensive line issues. The 4 games on deck, though, in that 3 to 4 week window for Evans, I mentioned the Eagles this week at Seattle, 49ers, and at the Lions in that window of potential time missed.
By the way, the strong chance moniker for Chris Godwin has also been put on Tristan Wirfs as well for week 4.
Great.
So, again, to the point of, is this impactful? You tell me both of them play. That's going to be pretty interesting. The other interesting aspect of this is there's, I guess, conversations of Tristan Wirfs playing right tackle instead of left tackle. So just keep that in mind as we're looking at his potential return. And we'll keep this rolling on the opponent that they have this weekend because apparently the Eagles have altered their travel schedule to acclimate to the heat in Tampa. It'll be wheels up to Tampa on Friday, a day earlier than they would usually leave for a Sunday game. It's expected to be low 90s on the west coast of Florida this weekend, humidity around 70%, and Philadelphia is hoping to get a heat acclimation period by practicing in the elements on Saturday. They are 1-4 in games at Raymond James since Nick Sirianni took over.
Yeah, okay. Back page news? Okay, I was just like, well, I mean, I will say this. We in 2 weeks ago now, we heard all about how Lincoln Riley was changing the way that he was handling West Coast travel. And, hey, the Trojans did not lose the game to Purdue, but they didn't cover. So I don't know if it was that successful. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a mental thing if you're doing that. Like, hey, we got to adjust. We got to get ready for this. But either way, Bucs know that they have an inherent home field here in the early going of the season against the Eagles, it would seem.
Both teams with miracle wins, it seems like, at the end. Although Tampa was in control for the majority of the game against the Jets, it still took a lot to ultimately get there at the end. Let's shift back to college football because, listen, Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti is always good for a soundbite, and he had this to say in his weekly press conference about his opponent coming up.
And Iowa, it's a tough place to play, Kinnick Stadium. They sell it out almost every Saturday. It's loud. And so We're going to have to play well. This will be a challenge, a more difficult challenge than the last one for sure. And the sooner our guys realize that, the better.
Dang! Shots fired on Illinois after the blowout this past weekend. Front page news or back page news?
Yeah, Signetti's a talker. Sometimes
he's always making a headline.
Sometimes he backs it up. Yeah, I guess it's front page news to an extent. I mean, you never like to do that going into a conference game.
Sure.
And Iowa still is like, I don't know, man. If like this offense is somewhat legit, they go in as you were off on the road that day, but we had Mike Paulman and we were discussing that spot against Rutgers, and they went out there and took care of business, and offense looked pretty good. And so, if you're going to be able to at least have an average to above average offense while playing relatively solid defense against this Indiana team, I don't know, 7.5 seems like quite a bit in terms of Indiana, the power rating upgrade coming off of that blowout win of Illinois. We should note that the Illini did lose quite a few defensive backs in that game as well throughout the course of it. So it's not like they were going to change the outcome. They were probably still going to lose that game, but it's a reason why it got so lopsided. Like injuries really started to pile up for Illinois as that game went along.
I'm interested to see if Illinois actually bounced back hosting USC this weekend. I know that'll be a game when we get to West Coast bias. We'll talk a little bit about tomorrow as well. But that 6.5-point spread on that one right now with the Trojans favored on the road. How about this one? So Falcons head coach Raheem Morris told reporters this week that Zach Robinson, their offensive coordinator, is going to move from the coaching box down to the field. And as we do this exercise, like front page news or back page news, I feel like this is front page news because this is one of those signals, right, for a team when they're struggling and they're doing anything to try to get things figured out. Like, that is a very bad sign to me about a team when we see a move like that.
That you're kind of desperate and trying to figure out what's going on.
It's like a players-only meeting early in the season, right? It's like the same type of a vibe.
Whoa.
Did the Dolphins win?
I was going to say, Dolphins had a players-only meeting, and they were about to win the game before a phantom penalty that really cost them on a drive that led to a touchdown. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I would agree with you for the most part. I'd also say that when you're like 27th in a lot of different metrics and on offense, you got to do something, I guess. Like, this does not really look great. And, I mean, it was a small sample size last year, and the sample size is growing. It's just worth pointing out that maybe, just maybe, the quarterback position is a little weak for the Atlanta Falcons at this point right now.
Also, Brian Callahan relinquishing his play calling duties to the quarterback coach this week. Front page news or back page news?
I think that's front page news. I mean, that's because that's a whole different thing, right? That's like, hey, when I'm going to call these plays, the formation of them, like the script as well, all sorts of different things. You can actually focus on being a coach situationally too. So I think that does matter. By the way, Michael Penix, the second lowest graded quarterback by PFF, just ahead of dead last Bo Nix. We talked about this yesterday. I thought you were going to remember.
I was just letting you have your moment. With the NFL season rolling, by the way, remember every snap brings new opportunities. And when you get VSiN Pro at VSiN.com/subscribe, use our promo code MONEY. You save 40% on our football season special right now. That's everything we do, all of the best bets, the on-demand programming, everything you need. VSiN.com/subscribe.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
After 6 months and more than 2,300 games, the MLB regular season will come to an end this week. 5 of the 12 playoff spots and 2 of the 6 divisions have been decided. There's still 15 teams alive, though, for those final 7 spots. We're going to dive into some MLB here as we welcome you back into Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. As we welcome in VSiN.com Managing Editor Adam Burke to the desk with us live here. And one series with big playoff implications beginning tonight involving your Guardians taking on the Detroit Tigers. How are we feeling?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because I actually woke up nervous today, like nervous and anxious about it. And I feel like in the playoffs, I'm not, just because of the nature of the playoffs, right? It's high variance. There's just really anything can happen, right? But I don't know. There's something different about basically a pre-playoff series to get into the playoffs that just feels different. So, yeah, obviously, I mean, facing Tarek Skubal is not an ideal thing in game one, but also Skubal, I mean, you know, coming back off the injury, didn't look super sharp in his first couple of starts back. I don't know. I mean, I think they're live tonight, but also that total of 6.5 means it's going to be a, white knuckler for sure.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Detroit. For anybody who maybe hasn't been paying attention, has been wrapped up in football season, what has gone wrong for the Tigers? And let's assume they don't slip entirely out of the picture. The issues that have appeared for them, are they issues that will then keep them from doing anything in this postseason?
Well, I think something that, I was thinking about all season long that I think people weren't really bringing up a whole lot is that, for as bad as Cleveland's offense is, and believe me, it's horrible. There's no question about that. I've watched it pretty much every single game this season. Detroit's offense isn't very good either. Gleyber Torres is a guy who, performed very well in the first half. He puts up a lot of professional at-bats. But beyond that, they don't really have a whole lot of guys that scare you in this lineup. I mean, Spencer Torkelson kind of has his moments. Riley Green's got some power, but strikes out a ton. There's just not a whole lot of offense. There's not a whole lot of athleticism with the position player group either. Zach McKinstry's probably going to get to 20 steals, but other than that, they don't really have a lot of guys that run around a ton. Defensively, they're just kind of average, and the bullpen hasn't been very good. Also, I mean, it's been one of those things too, where a guy like Reese Olson goes down. He's kind of a starter with some upside. They're missing a guy like him. Skubal goes down, kind of dealing with some different things. So it's just kind of been a perfect storm of stuff, and Cleveland has just scored a ton of 2-out runs, and it's kind of the blueprint that worked for them last year, where every time Stephen Vogt makes a move, whether it's a pinch hitter or a reliever, they get the job done and he looks like a genius. So, Stephen Vogt's done a phenomenal job again this season too, but I think it's just simply this Tigers team's not really very good outside of Skubal. Would
it be worth looking at them to miss the playoffs entirely? Plus 450.
Yeah, I certainly think that's a possibility.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's also one of those two where, if Cleveland can beat Skubal tonight, that number is going to drop pretty significantly because then the division is tied. Cleveland has the head-to-head tiebreaker. They'd only have to win one of the next two to leave this series with a lead. So I think if you feel like there's an opportunity for the Guardians to beat Skubal tonight, then I think that's a pretty good way of kind of, in some respects, betting an alternate money line on Cleveland. Instead of the plus 130, you're taking a plus 150, where if they beat Skubal tonight, they're probably not losing both of the next two games.
And Houston, for what it's worth, Stormy, their last two series, the Angels and the Athletics. I think it's that order. I think it's reversed.
Yeah, right.
So for Detroit, it's a tough two series for them, the final, especially this one. The Astros should, in theory, take care of business in those two series.
I did want to run down real quickly, because you put it really well, JVT, like for people that maybe haven't been paying as close of attention, how this has changed in the division between the Tigers and Guardians. On July 8th, the Tigers led the Royals and Twins by 14 games. The Guardians were 15 and a half back. Even earlier this month, September 4th, they were still 11 games back. Today, just one game separates the two. No team has ever overcome more than a 15-game deficit to win a division or league in MLB history. The closest we have seen came in 1914.
Wow, all that just to lose in the first round.
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean,
that team, by the way, was the Miracle Braves who won the World Series. So put that out there if you want some positive juju.
Yeah, I mean, look, I certainly think if they get there, they're a clear underdog against pretty much whoever they play, except for if it were to end up being a 3-6 series against Detroit, which is what it would be if the playoffs started today. I think they'd still be a slight dog in that one, but I think they'd obviously be pretty live in that matchup. But look, I mean, again, there's two ways to look at the playoffs, right? And one of the ways that pisses me off is if you get in, you have a chance, right? While that's true on the surface, and I mean, we saw Arizona go all the way to the World Series a couple of years ago with 84 wins during the regular season, it typically doesn't happen that way. The playoffs are not as high variance as they used to be because you have these super teams that have $400 million payrolls and all of that. So, getting in kind of gives you a chance, I guess. But in reality, I mean, all of a sudden you're not playing bad teams anymore. And if you're not a very good team, it starts to show.
If I remove you can't do this, but I will. If I remove the variance from baseball and I just say, hey, all these teams are going to play at the pristine level. There's not going to be any random stupid baseball thing where for 3 straight games you're just hitting line drives to defenders. Who is the best team in the American League?
God, I've wrestled with this a lot, right? And I actually wrote about this today, in my MLB picks article over at VSiN.com, where I like the Blue Jays' first 5-team total over 2.5. The default answer would probably be to say Toronto, but this is a team, if you take away the 45 runs they scored in 3 games at Coors Field, which, again, you can't just eliminate games, but they're not playing the Rockies and they're not playing at Coors Field in the playoffs, they're still, significantly behind their run scoring pace on the road. 4.13 runs per game on the road. If you take away those 3 games in Colorado where they scored 45 runs, so obviously 15 runs a game there, probably not going to do that in the playoffs. They score about 5.4 runs per game at home. So this is a team that I think struggles away from home. I mean, they are a below 500 team, 40-41. They've won twice as many games at home as they've lost. So if they're able to play more at home, that's definitely a good thing for them. But I would honestly say Seattle at this point in time, just because I think their starting rotation is fantastic, and they've got guys that you're actually comfortable with having them work deep into games, where the importance of the starting pitcher dwindles in the postseason for the most part, unless it's a huge strength like it is for a team like Seattle. So I think Seattle right now, I would say, is the best team in the American League, but all of them are deeply, deeply flawed.
You mentioned the article you have up at VSiN.com right now, breaking down some of your plays for today. It is a full slate, 15 games on deck coming up this evening. For anyone who is looking for a sweat later on today, anything else you particularly liked?
So let's talk about a couple of interesting angles that I think are in play here this week. And, obviously you have, some of these teams are going to be very inflated in the must-win situations and all that. This is a week, and this is going to probably be priced into the market more often than not. But if you can get on these early, maybe you can get some line value on them. There are a lot of player props that are going to be worth taking a look at here this week. And one player that I highlighted for tonight actually is Jackson Holliday for the Baltimore Orioles. So Jackson Holliday's got 17 home runs and 17 stolen bases. When you think about guys at or before the age of 21 who had 2020 seasons with homers and steals, you're talking Jackson Chourio, you're talking Mike Trout. So I think Holliday would really love to finish the season with a 2020. Tonight, to get a stolen base, over half a stolen base at DraftKings was plus 390. To have 1+ home run was plus 578 for Holliday. He's got some work to do because he needs 3 steals and 3 home runs. But Ryan Pepio is a guy that you can hit home runs off of. He's a guy that seems to be kind of wearing down a little bit here late in the season. And Hunter Fiducia, the catcher for Tampa Bay right now, 80% of would-be base stealers have been successful against him. So to me, I think when you look at the big prices on a guy like Holliday, it makes sense to take a shot here. Also, if you're a guy on a team, and Matt Olson is another one I like to hit a home run tonight. If you're a guy on a team where the team success doesn't really matter anymore, you can't be a playoff team, you're not going to be a playoff team. As an individual, you might get a little more selfish, right? You may start swinging, cheating on the first pitch fastball, trying to get yourself up to 30 home runs like Matt Olson is. Last year, he finished with 29. He would love to get to 30 this season. So that's a guy that I think, he's a couple away here, but I think that's a guy that's going to want to hit 2 more home runs this week. So if you find a favorable matchup, like I think you have tonight for Olson against Brad Lord, then I think you kind of take a shot with that. So that's one that I like as well. And then also Tyler Soderstrom for the Athletics. He's about 4-1 to hit a home run. The prices are all compressed when you talk about playing in Sacramento. But Christian Javier is an extreme fly ball guy. So these are all angles I think you want to look at here throughout the course of the week. Players who are looking to get to round numbers, right? You're talking 20 steals, 30 home runs, 25 home runs, stuff like that. Sometimes it'll be priced in, maybe with a higher profile name. Other times it's probably not going to be, and maybe that's an angle you want to look to attack this week.
I like that. It's like the equivalent of calling plays to get, to pad numbers for guys
right, exactly.
At the end of a year. Meaningless stuff. Like, go ahead, steal a base, buddy. See if you can get it.
Right. Like if you go 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts on a team that's not going anywhere when you're trying to hit your 30th home run, like no one's going to fault you for doing that. So I think that there's some opportunities. Now, the matchup still has to line up, but I think there are some opportunities to try to take advantage of that this week.
Adam is, of course, our managing editor over at VSiN.com. So many articles, also exclusive betting splits that you can get each and every day on the website when you are a VSiN Pro subscriber. VSiN.com/subscribe is where you can get access to all of that information. In terms of the betting splits as well, we obviously are broadcasting from here at Circa, where that gives you maybe the sharp better, more big wager perspective. DraftKings as well, that'll give you the more broad public perspective. Again, $9.99 for your first month at VSiN.com/subscribe. You can also join us on an annual basis as well. We have one more update about VSiN.com we're going to tell you about when we come back on the other side of the break, that especially if you are somebody who is interested in these winter to spring sports, get excited. Lots more to come here next on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Even though we're in the thick of it with football season, basketball, hockey, it'll all be here before you know it as we welcome you back to Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy Buonantony, this fool Jonathan Von Tobel to my left, and then the great Adam Burke over here as well.
Fool's a term of endearment in my book. I call people fools all the time.
It's, yeah, because you totally mean it in a nice way when you say it. Yeah.
I call my children every time I come home from work. I go, what up, fools? My young children. It's a term of endearment.
All right. Anyways, Adam.
Hi.
I mentioned before the break we had some updates that are coming on the website, and actually some that are already there. What's up?
Yeah. So go to vsin.com/NHL. It's as simple as I can put it for everybody, because Jonathan Davis's NHL team previews have now been posted over at the website. And, if you were around with us last season, you know that Jonathan Davis, first of all, never turns down a guest spot on VSiN Airwaves. So, for the producers and the hosts, make sure you reach out to him. But dude he puts up a lot of action on a nightly basis in the NHL. A lot of shots on goal, props, blocked shots, all kinds of different things. But he did highlight some of that and a whole hell of a lot more in those team previews over at vsin.com. So vsin.com/NHL. We converted our NHL page into basically our NHL guide page. Not putting one out in PDF form, but all the team previews are there. I have other stuff to post from JD as we get closer to the season here. Some results for very, very chalky favorites last year. An interesting note about teams that have won the Stanley Cup that you may want to pay attention to. But those team previews, they're fantastic. They're phenomenal. I edited them, so they're definitely great. But head over to vsin.com/NHL because Jonathan Davis killed it with that NHL guide.
Surely not that much editing, though, right?
No comment.
Well, for JVT, obviously, I know you're heavily involved with what's to come with the basketball guide that's upcoming, and they're so detailed. There's so much there, and I was just skimming through what JD has put together already, and it's separated by division, but every team individually has potential bets to be made, season-long props, thoughts on the points totals, everything. It's really, really insightful. There's a lot of information there.
2 points of order. First of which is this is the best time of year because I get excited about this. I know you get information overload, but this is great. We have training camps that are already underway and preseason games for hockey. Media Day started today for the NBA for teams that are traveling abroad, so that's going to be starting pretty soon here. The other point of note is that I will be writing some features for our NBA previews, but all the credit goes to Zach Cohen, who will be writing all 30 team previews individually himself. Zach does a tremendous job, as you know, with the NBA stuff as well. So make sure, I don't know if it's going to be the same format. You would have answers on that. But either way, the NBA content is going to be tremendous.
Well, and let's make it very, very clear here that this is not, we've not demoted Jonathan Von Tobel from the NBA guide. He's just doing the Futures podcast with Mitch Moss. Was it Pod of the Futures?
Pod of the Futures. I got that wrong this morning.
On air 6 days a week. So this is not an indictment of JVT's NBA coverage, his analysis, anything like that. It's just simply this fool over here is busy. So
I don't want to bring it up, but Stormy knew it was a sensitive topic, and I think she did it on purpose to get after me. So
I did not. I just.
All right. I cried about it already. We can move on.
What did you say on Pod to the Futures this morning when you recorded that?
I think I said Back to the Futures, and then I said something else, and then I got it right. Yeah, I forgot that.
Close enough.
One of those things.
I think it was initially supposed to be Back to the Futures.
Really?
But yeah, I don't know if maybe we were worried about is that
trademark
too close?
infringement. That
we don't want to do that.
Like there's also long stories about that. Humans and I, instead of the Edge, were supposed to be the odds couple, but I'll let you guess who turned that down.
I'm not going to guess.
Matt Humans didn't want to be a couple with me, so he said,
why not?
Wow. VSiN's
It's very progressive of Matt Humans.
Adam Burke joining us here in studio at Circa Resort and Casino. Meanwhile, while we're looking ahead for a handful of sports, we are in the thick of it with college football and the NFL, and you do college football, regular bets, articles each and every week as well. There are some really big games coming up this week. We've got Oregon and Penn State out there in Happy Valley, Alabama, Georgia, a lot of different interesting games with playoff implications as well. What was one that caught your eye?
Well, I like New Mexico State plus 14 against New Mexico. Yeah, I know that's not at all where you wanted to go with that, but I do like the Aggies in that game against the Lobos. Look, as far as Oregon and Penn State goes, I completely understand why Penn State is a 3.5-point favorite here, and that's where I have the number 2 in my power ratings, but is this really the kind of spot you want to bet on James Franklin? Like, Drew Aller has not looked good so far this season for Penn State without Tyler Warren. I don't think that's a big surprise. Obviously, we know they can run the football. They've got 2 of the best running backs, probably the best 1-2 punch. You could argue maybe Notre Dame with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. But I know that in some way, shape, or form, I'm going to wind up betting Oregon in this game. Whether I just go ahead and take the money line and take a shot with it, but I'm not a Drew Aller guy. The transfer wide receivers that they brought in really haven't stood out yet. Maybe they're just sandbagging and holding something back, but Oregon looks good. And James Franklin doesn't really do well against good teams.
Mm-hmm. Well, he does have the benefit, though. This is not going to be a James Franklin against a top 5 opponent. At least Oregon is ranked 6th in the country, so there's a little bit of a.
I'm tired of this slander. My guy shows up. That was a great performance. That was arguably their best performance of the year last year when they played Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. They were brilliant. The offense was fantastic. I think this is a revenge spot. I think Penn State's going to get it done.
Okay.
No, stick up for him. The standards with which we hold him are absolutely ridiculous. Let me
Are
ask
they?
you.
Yeah, it's
Really? We're all talking about top 5.
Yeah, but it doesn't impress me when you beat lesser teams in the Big Ten. You've got to beat the good ones.
Maybe two top 10 teams last year.
So if this is the case.
Yeah, okay.
And Boise State.
Yeah, because SMU really deserve to be a top 10
So
team.
hold on. If you're being serious and you really, and I know preseason, you picked Penn State
to win the national championship.
What if in reality Penn State has just been holding back things offensively? Drew Aller is going to go on to have a great season. This is going to be a marquee statement game for him.
But
should you be betting him in the Heisman market right now at 30-1?
No. See, because I don't think that their offense, Adam, you can add to this too if you have anything, but I don't think their offense lends itself to him putting up Heisman-esque numbers. No. I think that they're, I brought this up on the Pod to the Futures, like Carson Beck, for example. Carson Beck, in theory, if I told you, hey, here's a starting quarterback of a potentially conference championship undefeated team, you'd say, hey, that's a Heisman contender. But I don't think Beck's going to put up the Heisman-type numbers that would put you in real contention for the award. You might be a finalist, but John Mateer is a guy who adds rushing yards, adds rushing touchdowns. Then what he does through the air, there's the semblance of these sexy numbers and statistical profiles. Aller in a good year, what are we thinking? 3,200 yards, 25 touchdowns, 3 picks. That's good, but that's not Heisman. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Well, and remember, the offensive performance you're referring to in the Big Ten championship game last year, which, by the way, remember, they lost that game.
I do.
So Drew Aller was 20 of 39 for 226 yards in that game. They ran for 297 yards.
Yeah.
If Drew Aller has to put up Heisman-level numbers, that's a really, really big deal for Penn State. That's a problem.
Sure.
And then some. So they're going to have to run the football with the same measure of success that they ran the football against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. And that's not going to really reflect on Drew Aller.
Dante Moore, conversely, by the way, 11-1 on the odds board right now. John Mateer, who you mentioned, is the favorite, but plus 750. I feel like this is still an awards market that at week 5 in the season is still wide open and ripe for the taking, and a lot of double-digit odds that could be interesting. And you mentioned just the stat padding and numbers you can get. We've talked about this before, but if USC starts winning some of these marquee games on their schedule, Jaden Maiava has that skill set that you're talking about that can boost those numbers in a statistical profile.
Yep.
9-0 touchdown interception ratio so far for Jaden Maiava. If Lincoln Riley took away the turnover-worthy throws from him, that makes all the difference in the world. By the way, Dante Moore at 11-1, I think it's really interesting here because if Oregon beats Penn State this weekend, and again, they are a 3.5-point dog. And
he has a great game. Where's that going to go?
They get Indiana at home, right? They get USC at home. Their road games, Rutgers, Iowa, Washington. Iowa's good defensively, and that's always going to be a scary game, but they can't keep pace with Oregon, I don't think. 11-1, if he wins this game and plays well, they don't lose again.
Yeah.
I don't think that they lose again.
No, I agree. If you like Oregon, you're betting more to win the Heisman because those are going to shrink exponentially.
Correct.
For Maiava, then obviously they're on the schedule. How many games do you have to win if you're USC for him if his numbers are good enough to win?
10.
What's that threshold?
I think 10.
I would say 10. Well, we're going to find out about them in a hurry because they're at Illinois here, then they play Michigan, then they play Notre Dame. At least they have a bye before the Michigan game, and it is at home. And then Oregon. I think 10 with really strong numbers, and if you get 2 of those 4 ranked wins and your losses are kind of close, then I think he's in the running.
I have to ask really quickly before we get you out of here about one of the marquee games of the week. This is right up your alley. San Jose State's a road favorite against Stanford. Or no, excuse me, catch-up points against Stanford. Catch a 2.5. We buying this?
Man, I don't know. I don't know about San Jose State. Yeah. Obviously, I know Stanford's not very good. But, San Jose State, Nick Nash was so much to that team last year. that do you have a playmaker to go win in Palo Alto?
I don't think Walker Egan's that good. I don't think this offense is particularly great.
I mean, is Stanford the side here? As ugly and as miserable of a bet as that is?
I think it might be. It's the game of the week.
Adam, you're awesome. Thank you for doing this. We appreciate it. We'll see you again next week, same time. For now, guys, remember, even though the football season is underway, the Average Joe contest presented by Edge Boost still is up and running with weekly prizes. Each week, you make 7 picks, NFL or college. The highest score that week cashes $500. And if you already have an Edge Boost account, that prize doubles to $1,000. And while you're cashing weekly wins, you'll also be in the mix for big quarterly prizes. Airfare in a hotel at Circa in Las Vegas, plus an in-studio spot right here on a VSiN show. Free to play. Enter anytime this season. VSiN.com/Joe. We'll be right back resetting for Hour 2 of Money Moves next.